Welcome to the channel. Tonight, we embark on a journey unlike any other, traveling back to the dawn of human civilization to witness one of the most transformative discoveries in our history: fire. But this isn't a tale of sudden inspiration. It's a story forged over thousands of years through meticulous observation, fear, and gradual understanding. This video is crafted to help you relax and drift into sleep. So close your eyes, settle in, and let my voice guide you back through the mists of time to an age where darkness reigned supreme and warmth was an elusive treasure. If you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing and leaving a like. I have many more soothing documentaries ready to share. Let us begin in humanity, its earliest days, when the earth was young and our ancestors were merely learning to walk upright. Fire was neither ally nor tool. It was a force of nature to be feared above almost all else. Those who came before us, whose names we shall never know and whose faces are but mysteries etched in ancient bone fragments, understood fire as pure destruction. It arrived unexpectedly with nature's fury, leaving trails of ash and charred desolation. Great storms swept through vast plains and dense forests, bringing bolts of lightning that ignited roaring infernos. Flames would consume everything in their path: trees, grasslands, and unfortunate creatures too slow to flee from distant vantage points. Our ancestors watched these raging displays of fire with an instinctive terror beyond words. The fear of fire coursed deeply through their very being, inherited from a lineage far older than they were, a primal wisdom that fueled their flight whenever plumes of smoke tainted the horizon or the acrid smell of burning wood carried on the wind. Fire wasn't just destruction, it was death incarnate, and survival meant fleeing from its rapid approach. When flames abated, the scorched aftermath repelled them. Charred wastelands barren of life evoked unease, as though the land still held remnants of the fire's destructive force. Roughly 2 million years ago, or perhaps longer, the connection between humans and fire was starkly simple. Fire was chaos. Humanity fled from it. Without light or heat at their command, they endured long nights huddled in caves or hidden under thickets, dreading not only the obscurity but also predatory dangers lurking in the shadows. Darkness was at least predictable. Fire represented uncontrollable calamity. In winter, many failed to survive freezing conditions when body heat alone proved inadequate. Struggles against the forces of nature were constant predators. Hunger, disease, and fire stood among these challenges as an untamable adversary. Still, humans are inherently curious beings, a trait that fuels not just survival but progress. Over time, even as they feared fire and avoided it at all costs, they began to observe it more closely. Little by little, these observations sparked shifts in understanding. It started with attention to patterns, small moments of recognition amid devastation that hinted at something beyond chaos. After wildfires ravaged landscapes and the initial terror receded, animals returned to graze on the lush, new growth sprouting from the ashes. Driven by the need to follow food sources for survival, our ancestors were compelled to revisit these scorched areas. Gradually, they began to notice things that challenged their simple view of fire as merely destructive. The burnt ground itself seemed altered, hardened, and compacted compared to untouched soil. It felt different beneath their feet and drained water better than softer earth. Some plants even returned more swiftly to scorched lands than other areas. These small but remarkable observations planted seeds of curiosity, seeds that would take lifetimes upon lifetimes to grow into understanding and innovation. And so began this long and transformative relationship between fire and humanity, not born from a single flash of insight but cultivated through enduring resilience, sharp observation, and relentless curiosity about an often frightening world. This is just the beginning of our tale. Over time, early humans observed a transformation in the landscapes affected by fire. The plants in burnt areas often turned out to be more tender and edible compared to those thriving in untouched soil, and animals too recognized this, leading their herds back to these regions. They also discovered that tree trunks partially scorched by fire would sometimes split open, revealing softer wood inside wood that was easier to manipulate with the stone tools they were beginning to craft. These insights accumulated gradually across generations, not through deliberate teaching but through the experiences of survival, trial, and attentiveness to what worked in the relentless quest for food and shelter. As understanding deepened, humans began to approach scorched zones with less apprehension, not because fire was any less dangerous, but because they learned to differentiate between the immediate threat of active flames and the aftermath of fire. While still mysterious, these burnt remnants posed no immediate lethal danger. This distinction between active flames and residual impacts marked an essential cognitive shift, enabling humans to perceive fire as existing in multiple states rather than as an indiscriminate source of fear. A burnt log was not synonymous with a burning log. What may seem self-evident to us today represented a revolutionary leap in understanding that eventually paved the way for one of humanity's greatest discoveries. As time passed, our ancestors spent more time exploring burnt landscapes and cautiously examining the aftermath of wildfires. During these explorations, they noticed something even more remarkable than the altered soil or vegetation: the lingering presence of heat long after flames had vanished. Approaching the smoldering remains of a fire carefully and slowly, they could feel warmth radiating from embers and coals concealed beneath the ashes. This type of warmth was unlike anything they'd encountered before, not the fleeting heat of the sun that came and went with daylight, nor the transient warmth of huddling close to another body. It was a persistent and profound heat that seemed almost elemental, emanating from the earth itself. During cold nights when the wind cut through their shelter and darkness threatened them from all sides, the memory of this warmth must have stood out as an almost irresistible source of comfort. Imagine living without a reliable way to generate heat where cold signified suffering or death, and then discovering that warmth could persist independently, found in glowing embers that endured through icy nights. This realization that fire could exist between blazing flames and inert ash, providing warmth without spreading uncontrolled, was one of the most significant moments in human history. It implied that fire might not just be an uncontrollable force but something approachable that could serve a purpose. This raised a profound question. Could this lingering heat be preserved or even manipulated? Although our ancestors lacked the words to articulate such questions, their curiosity drove them to act in ways that sparked groundbreaking progress. They did not experiment in any formal sense. Instead, they relied on trial and error, the natural method of learning through observation and gradual refinement. They discovered that placing dry grass or small twigs near glowing embers would ignite them, revealing that fire could be transferred from one material to another. Fire wasn't confined to specific locations but could spread under the right conditions if handled correctly. They began categorizing materials based on their ability to burn, learning that dry wood ignited faster than green wood and that certain bark types or dried moss were particularly effective fuel sources. These realizations were shared and remembered through practice and demonstration. Most critically, they learned how to carefully collect embers from waning wildfires, wrapping them in green leaves or hollowed bark sections to transport them safely while feeding these embers with dry materials to keep them alive for extended periods, sometimes lasting hours or even days. Though this was not yet complete mastery over fire, it represented the first crucial step, the understanding that fire need not simply be feared or avoided but could be captured and maintained, becoming a resource rather than merely a threat. The first humans to successfully carry embers from a wildfire and keep them burning must have experienced a mix of fear and exhilaration. They were engaging in something unnatural to their instincts, yet wielding a power no human had ever held before. These carefully nurtured embers became invaluable, more so than almost anything else they possessed, because once extinguished, there was no way to rekindle fire except to wait for another wildfire, ideally nearby and at a favorable time. Entire groups began structuring their lives around preserving these precious coals, assigning specific individuals to watch over them day and night. These caretakers would feed the embers just enough fuel to sustain their glow without igniting a dangerous flame. Losing fire due to carelessness or accident was a catastrophic event that could plunge the group into cold and darkness, often leading to severe punishment or even expulsion for whoever was deemed responsible. In a world unacquainted with fire-making, the ability to maintain fire was nothing less than a matter of life and death. Over time, as generations refined this practice of fire preservation, our ancestors gained a deeper understanding of fire's behavior and the conditions needed for it to survive. Through endless observation, they identified three essentials for sustaining fire: fuel, such as wood, grass, or dried animal dung; air, which they supplied by blowing gently on embers or arranging materials loosely; and heat, which fire self-generated once alive, but which required careful regulation. Though their knowledge was intuitive rather than systematic, it enabled them to become skilled fire keepers. This newfound ability dramatically altered their way of life. The most immediate benefit was warmth. Fire allowed them to thrive in otherwise uninhabitable climates and endure seasons that previously claimed countless lives. It provided comfort in hostile environments, making it possible to occupy caves too cold without fire or venture into higher, game-rich elevations. Groups with fire could survive nights that would have otherwise been fatal. However, warmth was just the beginning of fire's profound impact on humanity. As humans gathered around their fires through the long nights, they uncovered other, subtler advantages. Firelight extended their day, enabling activities beyond daylight hours. This extra time reshaped their social interactions and cognitive development. Around the fire's glow, people could sit together, make sustained eye contact, and develop increasingly complex communication systems, moving beyond the brief calls and gestures that sufficed during the demanding daylight hours. Fire became a focal point for group life, fostering social bonds, hierarchies, and shared traditions. Storytelling emerged here not as the fully formed narratives we think of today, but as demonstrations and reenactments of hunts and encounters with predators performed before an attentive audience. These performances educated and entertained while reinforcing group identity. The flickering flames had a mesmerizing quality, creating moments of stillness and focus conducive to reflection. In this space of contemplation, early humans began noticing patterns and connections previously invisible to them. Fire was reshaping not only their external environment but also their internal world, expanding consciousness in ways that paved the path toward language, art, and the abstract thought central to modern humanity. Yet despite all of fire's benefits, our ancestors were still unable to create it on their own. The constant threat of losing fire compelled them to develop sophisticated strategies for its preservation. They divided embers into separate containers to ensure spares in case of accidents, and used ember trading between groups as insurance against total loss. For early humans, fire represented both incredible power and vulnerability, a force that transformed their world while demanding constant vigilance to prevent its disappearance. The ability to deliberately create fire, rather than simply harnessing it from natural sources, was not a sudden breakthrough but the culmination of thousands of years of careful observation and experimentation. Early humans gradually realized that heat itself could generate fire. They observed that intense friction or impact could ignite materials, much like dry grass catching alight when placed near embers. These insights stemmed from noticing natural occurrences, such as rocks sparking during landslides or branches generating heat through vigorous rubbing in strong winds, phenomena that occasionally birthed flames under ideal conditions. From these observations, our ancestors began efforts to replicate such events purposefully. The earliest effective method likely involved generating heat through friction, rotating a wooden stick rapidly against another piece of wood until the heat kindled a flame. Today, This approach is recognized as the hand drill or bow drill technique. This process demanded meticulous precision. The wood used had to be appropriate, the motion sustained and quick enough to produce sufficient heat, and the tinder finely prepared and absolutely dry to catch the faint ember formed from the powdered wood. For the first individual to achieve fire through this method, it must have been the result of countless hours, perhaps even days of laborious attempts, informed by glimpses of success like sparks or smoke. When that initial ember finally came to life, glowing amid the dust, it must have seemed almost supernatural in its wonder. The knowledge of fire making initially spread slowly due to its complexity and the necessary specificity of materials. Those who mastered it protected the skill fiercely. It represented unparalleled power. Groups capable of creating fire were no longer reliant on maintaining embers or tethered to areas where natural wildfires had recently burned. Fire granted newfound independence, allowing communities to move freely, equipped with tools for starting fire wherever they went. This autonomy revolutionized human life, enabling migration across vast distances and into diverse environments from frigid tundras to steamy rainforests, solidifying humanity's place as the dominant species on the planet. Crucially, fire's significance extended beyond survival, becoming a catalyst for technological advancement. It wasn't merely a source of warmth or light, it became an indispensable tool for shaping other materials. Through controlled charring, wood became better suited for spears and digging tools. Heat-treating stone improved its workability for crafting sharper implements. Clay could be fired into durable pottery, improving food storage and preparation. Later, fire facilitated the smelting of metals like copper, tin, and iron, heralding the Bronze and Iron Ages. This mastery marked the start of a chain reaction leading to countless technological innovations, all tracing their lineage back to the controlled use of fire. Yet the most profound impact of fire wasn't just practical, it was psychological and social. Fire redefined how humans perceived time and space, revolutionizing their connection to nature. Before its mastery, humans were bound by daylight, forced into inactivity when night fell, a time fraught with predators and dangers no diurnal creature could safely navigate in darkness. Fire broke those constraints. It lit up the night, extending hours of productivity and fostering storytelling, communal bonding, and reflection. It transformed humans' understanding of their place in the world, not just as participants in nature but as entities capable of shaping and controlling their environment to meet their needs. This change marked one of humanity's greatest leaps forward, influencing not only survival but also culture, thought, and connection with each other and the world around them. Fire's discovery and mastery significantly pushed back the boundaries of human activity, extending it into previously inaccessible hours of darkness. This breakthrough profoundly transformed human consciousness and altered social structures. The time spent around evening fires became a unique transitional period, neither the active, hazardous hours of daytime hunting and foraging, nor the dormant state of sleep. Instead, it was a liminal space where bodies rested while minds remained engaged and alert. In these evening gatherings, humans developed sophisticated forms of social interaction and communication that transcended basic survival needs. Around the fire, they began telling stories not simply to share practical knowledge about hunting grounds or edible plants, but to entertain, explain, and craft shared narratives that strengthened group cohesion. Language evolved, allowing for the discussion of abstract ideas, past events, and future plans. Firelight also nurtured creativity. Early humans painted cave walls, carved figures from bone or ivory, and expressed deeper emotions and ideas, acts with no immediate survival utility but which fulfilled a profound desire for meaning and beauty. The relationship with fire likely fostered spiritual or religious practices as humans sought to understand and influence forces beyond their control. Fire, with its mysterious behavior and transformative power, might have seemed almost alive, even divine. Thus, many cultures began to regard fire as a sacred gift from ancestors or gods worthy of reverence, ritual, and care. The hearth became the focal point of homes and communities, where people gathered for warmth, food, and companionship. This centralization influenced the physical layout of early settlements and shaped their social structures. Often, those who managed the communal fire or understood fire-making held positions of authority and special status. In addition to its communal and symbolic importance, fire provided practical protection. Its flames deterred large predators that once posed significant threats, enabling humans to sleep safely and inhabit previously perilous environments. This newfound security freed mental and physical energy for innovation in technology and culture. Fire also allowed humans to alter their surroundings intentionally. Through controlled burns, they created clearings to encourage the growth of edible plants or directed game animals toward hunters, a practice marking a pivotal shift from mere adaptation to environmental conditions to active transformation of the environment. Cooking with fire further revolutionized human existence. Its beginnings were likely accidental. Early humans must have noticed that meat or plants exposed to fire softened or emitted appealing smells, even if charred. Over time, trial and error led to refined techniques, placing food near heat rather than directly in flames, turning it for even cooking, and removing it before it burned completely. The advantages were undeniable. Cooking broke down tough fibers in meat and plant matter, making them easier to chew and digest. Consequently, humans could derive more calories and nutrients from the same amount of food, fueling physical endurance and overall development. Ultimately, fire was not just a tool for survival but a transformative force. It cultivated deeper connections between individuals, reshaped human societies, enabled greater agency over nature, and laid the foundation for cultural evolution. What began as a practical discovery became a defining element of humanity's ascent. Cooking plays a crucial role in eliminating parasites and bacteria, reducing the risks of disease and food poisoning. It also neutralizes many toxins naturally present in plants, making a broader variety of foods safe to consume. The habitual practice of cooking triggered profound biological changes in human evolution by altering the energy equation necessary for survival. Cooked food requires less chewing, enabling the development of smaller teeth and jaws. Additionally, the improved digestion created excess caloric energy that could be directed toward growing and maintaining larger brains. Many anthropologists argue that cooking was a vital prerequisite for the evolution of the large human brain. Brain tissue requires an enormous amount of energy to function, and only with the enhanced nutrition provided by cooked food could early humans sustain this biological expense. If this theory holds true, fire did more than provide humans with tools, warmth, and protection. It shaped the very physical evolution of our species. It laid the groundwork for characteristics that define humanity, such as abstract thought, language, symbolic reasoning, and the plethora of cultural and technological advancements that followed. In essence, the modern human brain, extraordinarily capable as it is today, can be seen as a product of fire, an adaptation fueled by the energy surplus from cooked meals. Beyond biology, cooking also brought about significant social and cultural effects. Preparing and sharing cooked food soon evolved into a communal activity that strengthened social ties, fostered customs, and established diverse traditions depending on the group. The ways food was prepared, divided, and shared became regulated by social norms and expectations that helped define group identities and sustain social structure. The act of sharing meals around a fire is among the most ancient and universal rituals, forming a direct connection between modern humans and their ancestors from hundreds of thousands of years ago. As human societies grew more complex and reliant on fire, the knowledge and skill of creating and maintaining fire gained immense importance. This knowledge was not merely practical but also carried deep spiritual or religious meaning. Fire was often regarded as a sacred gift bridging the human world with greater forces. Learning to make fire was not just about mastering a technique but also being inducted into an age-old tradition integral to human consciousness. The tools and methods varied widely across regions. In forested areas, bow drills or hand drills were common, using friction to generate heat. In regions with access to hard stones like flint, the percussion method, striking stones to produce sparks, was widely used. Some cultures innovated with fire plows utilizing back and forth scraping motions, while others devised ways to prepare materials, such as dried fungus or plant fibers, to catch sparks more effectively, early examples being tinder bundles or charcloth. The range of fire-making techniques underscores that fire production was not a singular discovery but a recurring process that developed independently across various human populations. This widespread innovation highlights how problem-solving and the drive to adapt are intrinsic pillars of human cognition, universally shared across cultures and eras. Over millennia, fire-making technologies underwent refinement. Each generation introduced new tools or techniques to make ignition more efficient. With advancements like metalworking, metal strikers eventually supplanted stones for creating sparks with greater reliability and ease. Fire pistons, devices that utilized the rapid compression of air to generate ignition heat, were first invented in Southeast Asia. These tools reflect a remarkable understanding of pneumatic principles. While matches and lighters would later make fire creation nearly effortless, for much of human history, making fire was a skill that required significant practice and knowledge. Those adept at mastering this skill were highly valued and respected members of their communities. Over millennia, humans developed a symbiotic relationship with fire, forming a partnership where both sides benefited. Humans provided fuel and managed its oxygen intake, carefully controlling its spread to prevent destructive outcomes. In return, fire offered warmth, light, protection, and the ability to transform materials for practical use. This collaboration proved so advantageous and essential that it became a defining element of human identity. No culture on Earth has ever been discovered without some form of fire usage. The importance of fire was such that losing the knowledge to create it was unimaginable. Yet, historical accounts reveal cases of isolated populations losing fire-making techniques after prolonged separation from larger groups. To sustain their lives, they kept fire continuously burning for generations until contact with others restored their lost knowledge. These examples illustrate both the critical role of fire in human survival and the fragility of specialized knowledge when not meticulously preserved and passed down. The universal reliance on fire across all human cultures suggests its importance in human life predated the migration of modern humans out of Africa approximately 60,000 to 80,000 years ago. As humans spread across the globe, they carried fire technology with them, introducing it to every continent except Antarctica. They adapted fire use to meet the challenges of diverse environments and available resources. In Arctic regions where wood was scarce, people learned to burn animal fat and bones. In grasslands, dried dung served as fuel, while island populations perfected techniques for conserving fire, using it sparingly and maintaining it with utmost care. These adaptations underscore the resilience and ingenuity of human culture, as well as the power of accumulated knowledge passed through generations. Rather than rediscovering how to make fire with each successive generation, humans inherited an ever-evolving repository of techniques honed over hundreds of thousands of years. This shared knowledge enabled communities to thrive in otherwise harsh and uninhabitable conditions. Fire also played a pivotal role in human conflict and warfare. Beyond being a tool for survival, it became a weapon of intimidation, domination, and destruction. Raids involving the deliberate setting of enemies' homes or food stores ablaze were tactics commonly employed in numerous societies. Groups capable of effectively wielding fire held significant advantages over those that could not, not only in terms of safety and comfort but also militarily. This weaponization would persist through history, evolving into more advanced applications from Greek fire in naval battles to incendiary bombs in contemporary warfare. Despite its capacity for destruction when used in conflict, fire's role in human civilization was overwhelmingly constructive. It was central to the rise of urban centers and ancient cities by enabling technologies such as metalworking, pottery, and glassmaking, innovations that laid the foundation for industries supporting complex societies. Through its dual potential for creation and destruction, fire became an enduring force in shaping human history and progress. The agricultural revolution, which enabled humans to establish permanent settlements and build intricate societies, was made possible in part by fire. Fire allowed for the clearing of land for cultivation and the transformation of raw crops into edible food. Later, during the Industrial Revolution of the 18th and 19th centuries, fire again played a pivotal role, driving advances through the energy of coal and steam engines. Even in today's technology-driven world, fire remains fundamental to human life, providing the majority of our energy via the burning of fossil fuels and biomass. The connection between humanity and fire is not one with a definitive conclusion. Instead, it is an ever-evolving dynamic. As we find new ways to harness and manage fire's power, we are increasingly aware of the environmental repercussions of burning carbon-based fuels. The very same force that once eradicated darkness, cold, and hunger now contributes significantly to climate change and pollution, prompting us to re-examine our reliance on fire and seek sustainable energy alternatives that can maintain its benefits while mitigating its harmful effects. Tracing our relationship with fire from the early days when our ancestors fled from wildfires to modern times, where lighting a stove or flicking a lighter seems mundane, reveals its profound influence on human evolution and history. Fire wasn't he merely stumbled upon, it was slowly understood and refined through centuries of observation, trial and error, and eventual mastery. Humanity's bond with fire evolved from fear to careful monitoring, intentional maintenance to considered creation, and finally to everyday familiarity. However, this journey took tens of thousands of years, shaped by the accumulated wisdom of countless unnamed individuals, people whose efforts laid the groundwork for human civilization as we know it. Without fire, humans would have remained confined to warm climates, unable to efficiently digest tougher foods, work with metals or ceramics, illuminate their surroundings, or create the social structures essential to storytelling and developing complex societies. In essence, fire was instrumental in shaping humanity, transforming not just our biology but also our behaviors and consciousness into what defines us today. Every time you feel warmth from a stove or heater, use a candle or light bulb, enjoy cooked food, or handle a metal tool, you are engaging in an ancient relationship with fire that spans back to humanity's earliest days. Although its presence now feels routine, our distant ancestors viewed fire as nothing short of miraculous. On a cold evening when the lights go out and you light a candle or kindle a fireplace flame, you might briefly sense what they once did, a mix of awe, gratitude, fear, and wonder at this extraordinary force that destroys yet creates, threatens yet protects, moving and flickering as though it possesses life itself. Fire is neither friend nor foe but a timeless and elemental power that preceded humanity and will outlast us. Yet for a fleeting moment in cosmic history, it has remained our steadfast companion in the journey from darkness to illumination, from ignorance to understanding. The tale of how humans discovered fire is ultimately a narrative about learning. It illustrates our species' unique ability to observe patterns, remember them, share knowledge across generations, experiment with new ideas, and build upon what came before. This is not the story of a single individual inventing fire any more than anyone could solely claim credit for inventing language or art, but rather a testament to collective human ingenuity. Across countless generations, Individuals each contributed small advancements that eventually culminated in humanity's proficient mastery over fire. This collaborative process of cultural evolution highlights what sets humanity apart: the ability to adapt more rapidly than biological evolution alone allows by relying on shared learning and creativity. Fire represents one of the earliest and most transformative examples of this process in action. It demonstrates humanity's ability to alter its relationship with nature not through physical changes but through acquired knowledge and transmitted skills, a defining characteristic of our species. The mastery of fire marked a turning point in human history, unlocking the potential for all future achievements. It revealed that the world was not static or unchangeable but something that could be understood, modified, and controlled through deliberate effort and knowledge. Once humans harnessed the ability to create and sustain fire, they began to wonder what else might be possible, what other forces or elements could be understood and put to use. This curiosity set off a chain reaction of discovery, leading eventually to agriculture, architecture, mathematics, writing, science, and the amassed knowledge and technologies that define civilization today. Fire, in this context, was far more than a tool. It was a catalyst for a profound shift in human consciousness. It transformed our species from passive recipients of nature's provisions into active shapers of the world, capable of bending it to serve our needs and desires. This transformation brought immense benefits: enhanced survival, greater comfort, population expansion, but it also introduced profound challenges and responsibilities. The very power to alter the world also carries the capacity to harm or destroy it. Today, as we grapple with the environmental consequences of our reliance on fire, particularly the climate crisis fueled by centuries of burning fossil fuels, we face a critical question: how can we retain fire's benefits while minimizing its destructive impacts? Addressing this challenge will demand the same ingenuity, patience, and dedication that enabled our ancestors to first master fire. Whether we succeed or fail in this endeavor will not only shape the future of human civilization but also the fates of countless other species with whom we share this planet. As you prepare to rest tonight, pause for a moment to reflect on the long line of ancestors who came before you, a chain stretching back through millennia. Each generation carefully tended to fire through cold and darkness, teaching their descendants how to strike sparks from stone or spin a drill to coax forth an ember. Each generation added its own hard-won knowledge to the growing reservoir of human understanding. Feel the echo of their legacy in the warmth of your surroundings, in every light pushing back the night, in every cooked meal that nourishes you. The fire they nurtured with such diligence continues to burn in the modern world, connecting us back to those early humans who reached out to flames with trembling hands and discovered that fear could give way to understanding, understanding to power, and power to partnership. Rest peacefully tonight, comforted by the knowledge that the once impenetrable darkness no longer surrounds us. Somewhere along the ages, someone learned how to carry an ember, how to feed it with care, how to ignite it into a thriving blaze, and passed those skills along an unbroken line to this very moment. That fire remains with us and always will, as long as we remember where we came from and honor the ingenuity that turned fear into wisdom and shadow into light.